saying, I don't know what show to listen to. Stop listening to Fox News and start listening to Patriot Strong podcast. Stop listening to fake media and Newsweek and Newsmax and start listening to the Patriot Strong podcast. Make it your daily mission to listen to this podcast and share it with your friends. Thank you so much, Courtney. Have a great day.
Welcome to this episode of Patriot Strong, you guys. I'm so thankful that you are tuning in today. Before we get started, if you could do me a favor and go ahead and hit that subscribe and follow button on whatever platform you're listening to, that would really help my show and myself out a lot. You guys, it's definitely the most important to me, being a kindergarten teacher, but it might be the most important episode that I have brought to you guys to date. So you want to hit that notification button so you never miss episodes like this whenever truthers and people put their neck on the line to bring truth into the light, because there's a lot of darkness and a lot of evil in this world. Today's episode is going to be tough for a lot of you guys to listen to, because it is something that really does happen, even though a lot of people are going to snark and roll their eyes like they did earlier last year. But this is something that happens all of the time. It is the second largest, most profitable industry in the United States, illegal industry in the United States, I should say that. And people don't want to talk about it because it is a very ugly truth. And to come to terms and grasp that this amount of evil can exist in the world and happens every single day is truly heartbreaking. I'm going to welcome to the show Matt Osbourne. Matt, thank you so much for joining me. For those of you that don't know, Matt is a global operations ambassador for Operation Underground Railroad. He has led 27 undercover rescue operations, resulting in the liberation of 211 human trafficking victims that led to the arrest of 72 suspected traffickers. Matt, welcome to Patriot Strong. First of all, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your sacrifice and putting your neck literally on the line. Like I said, this is a very, very important episode, and I'm appreciative that you are taking the time to sit down with me today.
Well, thank you very much, Courtney. But what you're doing in your Patriot Strong audience, this is so important, because this is how we're going to end this, getting the word out, as we'll talk about now during this time, to educate and empower to fight child exploitation and human trafficking.
And, it is something that really does happen. And I'm thankful that, I have the opportunity to bring people on like you that are boots on the ground, that see it firsthand. It's not just something that happened in a movie. It's not some conspiracy theory made up by the right wing. It's really happening, and it happens every day, multiple times a day, over and over. Can you give your background, and a little bit more information of who you are and how you came to your position right now with Operation Underground Railroad?
Yeah, I was very blessed to serve our country with the CIA and U.S. Department of State for 12 years. Now, I'm conservative. I view myself as a patriot, but I worked in the administration of President George W. Bush and President Barack Obama. So it was Republicans and Democrats, because for me, it was Americans, right? This is an American issue. We all need to join together. Now, I didn't know much about human trafficking when I started with the government. This was right after the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. I was focused on Islamist extremist terrorism, countering threats to the homeland. Then I got into organized crime, drug trafficking, trying to dismantle those networks. And then, Courtney, the U.S. government asked me in the year 2006 to work something I had never heard of before, called human trafficking. And I admit, and I'm embarrassed to admit it, but it happens. And maybe some of the audience now feel the same way I used to feel. This is prostitution. This is the movie Pretty Woman, with the Julia Roberts character choosing when she worked, who she had to sleep with, how much she charged. When my eyes were open that this was trafficking, these girls and women were being exploited, I knew I had to do something about it. And I have 2 college-age daughters now. Back then, they were very young. And I said, all right, I have to dedicate myself to fighting this. So I worked this issue with the U.S. government for a number of years, got a little frustrated with the bureaucracy, the lack of resources. And then I was fortunate to get on with our organization, Operation Underground Railroad. And for those of you who saw the movie Sound of Freedom this past summer, or those of you who have seen it or will see it on Amazon Prime, that story, the founding story of Operation Underground Railroad, is something I lived. I was involved in that beach rescue operation and some of the other operations. I saw how a nonprofit could empower governments in a public-private partnership, and that's what we're trying to do now in the US and around the world.
That's amazing. Just to hear all of your experience and to hear that you were involved in that beach rescue. Through the podcast, my husband and I were fortunate enough to have early access tickets to go see the movie theater. A lot of you listening, you guys know if you follow the Patriot Strong podcast Facebook page or even my page, all of these people across the country were experiencing absurd, inconveniences for this movie only. No sound for the first half of the movie, or the lights weren't working, or it was too cold or too dark, whatever. And I feel like everybody was against this movie because they didn't want it to get out. And
Right.
now that the Jeffrey Epstein list is coming out more and more, and all of these Hollywood pedophiles are being exposed, this is a huge hot topic. Trigger warning, something that needs to be more exposed. And I will work every chance that I get to make sure that it is heard by everybody that I can let hear it. So again, thank you so much for coming on and doing what you do, really.
Thank you. Yeah. And again, as I said earlier, thank you, Courtney. And you think of your listeners and the great men and women in your audience, great patriots. This is what we need to do. We can't count on the government to do this, right? Private citizens need to help in terms of supporting. Now, I will say the US government, Homeland Security investigations, a number of police departments and sheriff's offices in the US, some law enforcement units around the world, they want to do the right thing to save children and arrest predators. Oftentimes, they don't know how to do it, or they don't have the tools and resources. That's why a group like Operation Underground Railroad comes in to empower, to fill the gaps, and to help set up these sting operations, to help set up these investigations, make the rescue when possible, and then get these children into aftercare program that I know we'll be talking about as well.
So to start off with, maybe somebody listening hasn't seen the movie, or they haven't heard of Operation Underground Railroad. Can you just break it down for my audience how that came to be and why you guys got involved and why you do what you do? I mean, I know the answer is obvious for a lot of us, but just dumb it down and break it down.
We were formed early on by a former member of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Those who've seen The Sound of Freedom will know Tim's story. Tim was frustrated, again, is what I just mentioned, lack of resources, too much bureaucracy. And again, it's not blaming one political party or another. This happens in U.S. government. As we joke, Courtney, the U.S. government, is like an aircraft carrier. If you can get it out of the port, you can kind of get it going. Maybe it takes a while to turn and maneuver. We wanted to be a jet ski. We wanted to be a PT boat to get those resources in to the hands of law enforcement. And so Tim and others who helped found our organization really thought that a nonprofit, through generous, God-fearing donors who wanted to help rescue children, rescue adults who are trafficked, they could help raise resources and donations for us to then empower law enforcement. And so that's what we're doing. And we've evolved. So you talk about the Sound of Freedom movie. That talks about just one aspect of human trafficking. It doesn't show what human trafficking looks like in the US around the world, but it does show in a lot of ways of how Operation Underground Railroad got its start, how we decided to go private, to work with law enforcement around the world, and to use the American face. It's unfortunate that Americans, to a large extent, are perpetrating this issue of child exploitation, human trafficking. We like to be number one in a lot of things, right? But I know that we don't want to be number one in the amount of child sex abuse material. We used to call it child pornography. How much child sex abuse material we consume and produce. The United States is number one in that. And unfortunately, that leads then to what we call child sex tourists, adults traveling overseas to have sex with children. So we empower law enforcement, whether it's Haiti, Colombia, Mexico, Thailand, Dominican Republic, you name it, and give them the tools, not just give them a fish, but teach them how to fish. Sometimes we play the undercover operations. We use the American face to set up the traffickers. In the United States and Canada, we work behind the scenes where we only provide funding, training, tools, technology to make sure they have these resources. So we've evolved now in our 10 years of existence. We've been grateful to have amazing donors. But at the end of the day, it's events like this, your podcast and others. Hopefully, we can educate everyone in your audience that this problem exists so that they can then go and post on social media, talk about our organization, maybe donate to our organization or to other good groups out there. This is how we're going to end it. And that's what we try to do, fight it from a law enforcement aspect, undercover operations, technology that we can talk about, and then aftercare, but really raising awareness. That's why I'm so grateful here to the Patriot Strong podcast.
Thank you. You know, raising awareness and bringing the truth into the light is half of the issue. A lot of people don't know that it exists. You know, a lot of people that don't watch the news, or, you know, they don't go to movies, or they don't have social media. They have no way of knowing. But the truth of the matter is, it is a ugly thing that happens all the time. And, you know, we always hear about the unaccompanied minors crossing the southern border. And, you know, that only brings into my mind, like, these kids are being taken from their parents and they're being released into the United States, and then they become part of this industry and part of this sex trafficking ring that happens. And, you know, it's just another aspect of our southern border and why that needs to be fixed.
Right. And, you know, oftentimes we say that the children who show up at the southern border, they're the lucky ones in a lot of respects, right? Because you see them, at least until they, as you said, get let into our country. We don't know who they are. Think about the children who have died along the route, or who are in criminal gangs or trafficking gangs throughout Central America and Mexico. This is a real tragedy in a lot of ways because of the immigration we're seeing, the illegal immigration, where our laws are such where as long as someone shows up at the border saying, oh, I'm the uncle, that's my nephew, or yeah, I'm a friend, you know, just come with me. Well, the US government, all they can do, our brave men and women working on the border, they're so overworked and overtaxed, they can just give an NTD, a notice to report. Okay, you come back in 6 weeks, 6 months. Do you think they're going to do that? Of course not. And then they're lost. But one more thing I'll say on that is, as important as that immigration issue is, I don't want anyone in your audience to think that that's actually what's causing the most human trafficking in the United States. It's still the vast majority of victims are US citizens, girls mostly, and women, but also boys and men, who aren't getting the love at home, who are getting lured in on social media, who are getting with the wrong friend groups. So parents and grandparents out there, this isn't to freak you out, but it's to educate your child. Let her or him know that these dangers are there. They'll be safe if they don't put out anything on the internet that they shouldn't. Don't talk to strangers. Don't engage with people they don't know. But little by little, this is where we've seen the increase, especially after COVID, of human trafficking and exploitation in the United States.
Absolutely. And, you know, I've done interviews with other people that are exposing organizations like CPS, that, you know, these children are handed over to these government, you know, organizations that aren't good, or they are, you know, there's these families that are setting up these foster homes, or, you know, orphanages kind of thing. And unfortunately, that's what's happening in those too. You know, it happens every day, and you just never know.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And again, you separate, right? The workers, the CPS, who are trying to do the right things, but they don't have the resources, the system set up. And then you have the bad apples who come in and know that I can take advantage of this system. Our director of aftercare was a 7-time foster mom. She was one of the good ones. She's out there trying to make sure we can cut out this, you know, like I said, these bad apples. But it really is a tragedy. Children are vulnerable, as you mentioned at the top of this show, right? There are always going to be people going after children. And we've seen that. That's why when we go overseas, we're offered children, we're offered virgins. It's horrific what we're offered, and for a very high price. In the United States, a child fetches a very high price as well. But I honestly, I'm more optimistic than pessimistic. I know it doesn't seem like that, but there are solutions, and groups like Operation Underground Railroad are out there trying to empower law enforcement to do the right thing.
You know, and along with Sound of Freedom, there's another one you guys need to go check out. It's called Operation Tucson. That was an amazing story too. You know, they took cameras into this orphanage, and if I remember correctly, a brother and sister were, you know, put up. You know,
Right.
but, you know, it really is. And it's not only the United States, like you said, it is internationally. What does that look like internationally for you guys? And then can we go into more of like the training and the tools that you guys use?
So overseas, what we saw is, again, this idea of the American tourist, the Western tourist. That is who is perpetrating it in a lot of ways. There's obviously still local trafficking and exploitation. So our operators saw from the very beginning of our organization that when we got permission from the host government, law enforcement, prosecutors to go in, we would bring resources in, but we'd bring the American face. So we were given permission to go to areas where trafficking was believed to happen. Beaches, bars, red light, districts, or red light zones. And sure enough, traffickers would offer us everything from on the beach, parasail, jet ski ride, to drugs, to girls walking around the town. And we don't carry weapons. That's what's, sort of a scary thing. This isn't the CIA anymore, law enforcement, where we have our weapons. Our weapons are hidden cameras, undercover microphones, so we can record high definition video and high quality audio to give to prosecutors. These traffickers are so greedy. They'll give us their names. They'll show their ID. They'll say, hey, Western Union me $100 and here's all my information. We said, sure, we'll send you $100. And of course, we've got all the information to give to law enforcement. But, and your question, what does it look like? Where do the victims come from? Well, oftentimes it's like anywhere, socioeconomic conditions, single mom, too many mouths to feed. We are seeing organized crime, and we're seeing offers of things that are too good to be true, whether it's like a modeling agency we saw in Colombia that was in the movie. If you saw that, that actually happened. I sat across from the Cartagena beauty queen who's saying, hey, these kids are gentle. They're young. You've got to be gentle with them. You've got to, not take advantage of them. I mean, it's crazy how she's saying, and yet she's still selling them for $500 a pop. So that's what we're seeing now. But what your second part of your question is so important. How do we transition to go where the traffickers are now and where the sex buyers are now? It's almost exclusively online is what we're seeing. And not really often the dark web. Some of your listeners may have heard of that. Yes, there's some of that really bad stuff on the dark web, but this is on Facebook, Courtney, as you know. This is Instagram. This is Snapchat. This is just chatting, texting. These are video games too, everything from your Fortnite to your Madden football, to your Roblox and Minecraft for those in your audience who have younger kids. Anytime you're interacting with other people and you don't know exactly who they are, you have to be careful, because that's where the grooming process goes through. And we're trying to provide high-tech tools that we can talk about if you like to have law enforcement targeted. But it's important to know that as the traffickers evolve, so too do we in Operation Underground Railroad. We need to evolve.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing. There was a post that was going around social media. Many of my friends shared it. I have a 16-year-old who, he's old enough to, I think, know the difference. But the younger ones, they get on these online games on their Xbox or their PlayStation, whatever, and they play with these like digital friends, and they don't know who they're really talking to. And then the guy's like, oh, if they're smart enough, and then they can like triangulate like locations and find your IP address and all these things, and they can locate like where you are, and then they come and they do whatever. They're like, hey, come meet me at this place or that place. And it sounds like an absurd Hollywood movie idea kind of thing, but it really happens. And parents need to be so tuned in and so involved with everything that their kids do, because this world is a scary place and everybody is targeting our children.
Yeah, and gosh, you've said so many good things just then that I want to touch on. So first and foremost, your 16-year-old son, use him as an example, right? It's any of us. We have to be very careful, because social media, it's so easy with Photoshop, AI, digital imagery. Unless you physically know the person whose friend requests you've accepted, or if I don't know the person when I'm chatting with online, or your son's playing video games online, that could be a 15 or 16-year-old boy or girl, or it could be a 65-year-old man, and you would never, ever know. So that's something important to know as well. Also, I tell parents, grandparents, I'm not saying don't let your kid play video games, don't let your kid be on social media, but let them know where their dangers are. Let them know where the pitfalls could be. Because we oftentimes have a phrase, the eyes don't see what the mind doesn't know. So if your 16-year-old son, if we don't know what's going on, our mind doesn't know, then it could be in front of us. We never see it. But now, because of this awareness, we're going to be able to see it. We're going to have our antenna up. And that's what we're trying to do as well with education and outreach programs.
Really quickly, because we have spoke about the movie, can we talk about the success of the Sound of Freedom and like the awareness that has been brought since then versus how many people knew or like were involved in the outreach before? Like how much has this movie helped your operation?
We were very blessed with the movie. There's an interesting dynamic. So Sound of Freedom, the script was written in around 2016, 2017,
Yes.
based on operations that actually happened. A lot of times we got criticism. This didn't happen. I was there. This actually happened in October of 2014. The movie was shot in 2018 in Colombia. So think about it. From 2018 to 2023, 5 years, we can't get the movie out. I went through a bunch of different movie houses. You've heard probably in the media, Disney doesn't want it, some of the others. Again, I don't know. I never heard why. Maybe it's because it's too dark. Maybe it's because, as you just talked about earlier, a lot of the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, there are people who don't want this out. But we were so grateful now. And again, we're men and women of a bunch of different faiths. We think it's God's timing. And we really wanted it out 2019, 2021. But we see the blessing that the movie would never have had the success it had if it wasn't 2023. Can you imagine if this tried to come out during COVID or just went to Netflix or something like that? This was a theatrical release. The performances are outstanding. Jim Caviezel, Bill Camp. If Hollywood would give this movie a fair shake, Bill Camp as Vampiro, who's also based on a real character, he'd get Best Supporting Actor. Then Amazon Prime viewers, you guys can go watch The Children. How good were the child actors, right? Just
oh my gosh.
amazing. So amazing. So we finally get this movie out, and you can see the country's ready for this. They don't want all of this crazy crap in their theaters trying to push different things on them. This is a feel-good movie about events that actually happen. Yes, there was Hollywood embellishment towards the end of the movie. I mean, that's normal. But we wanted to start a movement. So what you talk about, and I'll use just our organization as an example, and it's just one small set. From when the movie started in July 3rd of this past summer till about end of August, September, when it started petering out, we gained over 40,000 new supporters, donors, others coming. We had more law enforcement units reaching out to us. Overseas, our law enforcement partners there saw the movie and said, we want to do those type of operations in our countries. And we've been doing that. So it's had an exponential effect. And I really, anyone who hasn't seen it or want to go see it again, Amazon Prime. And I'll tell you one joke here. You got to watch it or you'll miss it. Halfway through the movie, there's a 3-second cameo of me. I play a Homeland Security agent right after the beach rescue. I'm walking across the beach. So this movie came out last summer, and when it came out, all of my friends, other people, family start texting my wife and me, said, hey, Matt's really aged well. I had to check and say, that was shot 5 years ago, so I don't look that good.
Oh my gosh.
That was 5 years ago.
That's so funny. Yeah, my husband and I, it's one of our favorite movies, actually. Like, we just watched it last week. We've seen it in the theaters. We recommend everybody seeing it because I think the more people that realize or that see it, the more that people can notice the signs, or like if you see, and not all the time, and I'm not saying that, and again, I'm not trying to scare anybody into it, but anytime that you see a child that looks uneasy or just an odd situation, kind of what to look out for. And I don't know, I think I'm so thankful that the movie has done so well. I know that I was talking to you like connection wise with another podcaster, and he had mentioned it. A lot of them were invited to Vegas to see the movie whenever it came out. And he said like they're grown grizzly men and they were just sobbing. So and cute, and it's such a sad movie, and like the panic that sets in whenever the dad goes to the apartment and his kids aren't there. And then, just kind of timing things like you said, there's a part in the movie whenever Jim Caviezel's character is talking with one of the child characters or child actors, and Jim asks, where's your sister? And then it shoots to the cargo ships. And that's another thing, are they being transported in these cargo ships? Are they being transported, just something that you have to really dig into. And I think the more that, again, people are aware, the more that they can look out and bring awareness and like, hey, that doesn't seem right. Is this really going on? That kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the movie is so well done. Again, everything in the movie either happened exactly as it was portrayed or just with slight embellishments until
Sure.
the end, of course, the Hollywood ending. But you're right, the cargo ships, again, that's a minority of cases, but that still happens. More often than not, it's a family member who is exploiting you, pimping you out. Or in the case of the beauty queen, what actually happened is she was using her celebrity to trick parents, really moms, to letting their daughters come with her so that they could be famous, even though it was ended up being traffic. There was trafficking, and this woman is still protesting her innocence. But I was there. We have video of her talking about what these kids will do in these different acts. And so Sound of Freedom did a great job rallying people to the cause. I'm grateful that you're asking other people to go watch the movie. We don't get any of the proceeds from ticket sales or Amazon Prime, which is fine. But what we do is get people watching it. Then they come to our website, and I'd invite anyone to go to ourrescue.org, ourrescue.org, to learn about the real heroes who are doing this every day. Now, I'm not the real hero. I know I'm not on the front lines now. I'm back behind the scenes. But that's great. I did my time several years ago with OUR, as you read in the bio. We have such accomplished women and men from all walks of life in law enforcement, intelligence, diplomacy, business, who are building out our regions, 6 regions around the world and 1 in the United States, because this happens every day in every corner of the world. And we're not going to stop until we reach our audacious goal of putting an end to this. As the movie said, God's children are not for sale, and we're going to do all we can to continue to fight this.
Now, I know that you said it happens internationally too, and in the United States, from your experience, what locations are they, amusement parks, vacation spots? What areas in the country do you or have you seen the most children like being taken?
Yeah, the vast majority are being exploited online and through social media, as we mentioned. The source of the trafficking victims, for the most part, are American girls and boys to a lesser extent, but girls for sure. And traffickers are taking advantage of girls who are not, don't have the love at home that they're looking for. Maybe are in broken homes. Maybe maybe they get hooked on drugs. Maybe they need certain type of attention. And where they're getting recruited, and what's interesting when we talk about is they're not necessarily getting taken like we think kidnapping, but they're getting taken in this way. Malls, movie theaters, bus stations, Walmarts, anywhere where girls will be, shopping or around. There are traffickers, groomers who are looking, and they're looking at 1 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. Wait a sec, why is this young girl here? She should be in school. Maybe there's an issue. Well, maybe that girl had a fight with her mom, or maybe she's had some other issues and she's playing hooky from school. These traffickers swoop in, and they're very charming, Courtney. They don't have to snatch and grab, because they say, hey, here's a little money for food. Here's my business card. If you want to come, I'll make you a star, or I'll give you drugs and clothes, and you can stay out all night, and I'll give you love and attention. So these girls kind of go, quote unquote, willingly into it because they don't know what they're getting into. Then all it takes is for a trafficker using one of these things, a cell phone, you get a compromising photo or video, or through force, fraud, or coercion, you're then keeping these girls against their will. And if they don't tell anyone, that's when this continues. But if they could just break the chain, break the cycle, tell law enforcement, tell someone, that might help. But oftentimes these girls think that these guys love them, right? We call it the Romeo pimp. They're a boyfriend. But what it is, it's insidious, it's manipulation. And at the end of the day, the reason this happens, and hopefully we can talk about this now, is the demand side, because there are too many people willing to purchase it. And that's why there are so many trafficking victims. And that's what we have to address as well.
Yeah, let's go right into that. And it's disgusting. You mentioned it earlier. The United States is the largest producer, consumer of child sexual assault material, and we really do need to go into that. So by all means.
Yeah, oftentimes I'm asked, why does this happen? And I think there are a few things. I think that we have sort of an over-sexualized culture, right? And again,
Yes.
I'm not an old fuddy-duddy, but really, look at our movies, look at our music, look at our ads. And it's a slippery slope. Just a real quick example from my life. So my grandfather passed away about 15 years ago, but before he died, early 2000s, we're watching a Dallas Cowboys football game. I live in Texas and I'm a long-suffering Cowboys fan. And there's a Miller Lite beer commercial comes on at halftime. And there's scantily clad girls, right? You know, kind of cut down to here, cut up to here. And he had a great point. He said, Matt, that would have been pornography when I grew up. But that's
Wow.
tame. That's tame right now. Look at what actual pornography is. Look at what we are doing. This is leading more and more people to get hooked on pornography. And after a while, it's not enough to just look at a pornographic video, read a pornographic magazine. You have to actually go and physically be with somebody to get that rush. That's then creating the demand for women and girls and boys and men. And what I talked about at the outset, maybe people in your audience, and it's no shame because I felt the same way. Maybe you think of a topless dance bar, a strip club. Oh, those girls just want to be there. Maybe you go to a bachelor party. Oh, the girls we hired up, they seem like they're having a good time. All the studies show that you don't have to go too far back in their life to see abuse, to see trafficking, to see exploitation. So if we can get more men to realize these are victims, these aren't volunteers. This is trafficking and not prostitution. And I love you talk about your 16-year-old son. I have 2 college-age daughters. I never had a son, but I like to go talk to young men's groups to start sort of at his age and say, guys, I don't think you'll ever be a trafficker or a sex buyer, but if left unchecked, toxic masculinity, over-objectification of women, pornography, peer pressure, this is a mix which leads a man one day at 25, 35, 45 to say, I'm going to call up a prostitute. It's all tied together, and that's what we need to educate as a way of ending human trafficking.
And, you know, just like you said, going to talk to them while they're young and, you know, give them education and information material on, you know, what it is. And I love that you said, you know, it's not that they're volunteering or that they're willing. A lot of the times, you know, it's a pimp, you know, that they work for. You mentioned the Pretty Woman movie in the beginning of this. And you know, that's something that even like as of today, like I never even connected that that's what was going on. And that's, you know, it's been in Hollywood movies all of this time right in our face. And that's sad, you know, and now it is in movies, it
Right.
is in music videos, you know, the things that our children are watching because everything is over sexualized. And then you know, you mentioned it's because girls are like they have trouble, you know, everything is so filtered and so AI related. It's like these girls they can't compare to these Instagram models or, you know, whatever they see on TV. So then their confidence, I think, falls so low. And then like you have this guy, like you said, the Romeo effect that comes in like, oh, you're so beautiful, you know, whatever. And it's easier for them to go because they're getting that attention and that love and that affection that they haven't gotten, you know, in prior years.
Exactly. And that's what we talk to parents, grandparents. So in your audience, open up conversation with your child. I know it seems awkward, but again, let them know you're on their side. You support them 100%. There's nothing they could do that will make you not love them anymore, even if they've posted something that's embarrassing, even if they've said some things. But let them know that the way these traffickers get them into the network is in secrecy. Hey, let's chat, you know, offline. You talk about Minecraft, Roblox, even the youngest kids, these games, there's a chat feature. And so to be aware, tell your kids, hey, if you're playing and talking about the game, that's good. But if someone says, let's take this to text message or Snapchat, that's a big red flag. So we have to get that awareness out as well to make sure. Also, we talk about, excuse me, we talk about sexually explicit imagery. If there ever is something where a child or grandchild gets that online and you find out about it, there's a website called cybertipline.org, and they can help you get some of that stuff off because these traffickers use that as blackmail and as extortion. Aha, I've got some nude images of you. If you don't want your mom, your brother, your pastor, your teacher to see this, then you're going to do exactly what I say.
Right.
So, of course, most people are going to say, don't post it, don't post it. That's going to get you in. Take the initial hit, the embarrassment, go to cybertipline.org, tell someone. That takes away the power the trafficker has over you. And that's one way to avoid getting pulled into all this.
You know, it's so sad, especially the little ones, the, you know, the babies, not infants. I mean, not that infants aren't, subjected to, but as a teacher, it breaks my heart. Like I sob. I've seen the movie 10 times and I sob every single time because I think of that one little boy or that one little girl in my classroom. And, in the neighborhood that we live in, there are kids that are playing, just like we did, but America is not the same America that we grew up in. And we live 2 miles from a major highway. So for somebody to just come in and swoop up the child and then take off,
Right.
it can happen so quick. Parents need to be so involved and keep your eye on your kids at all times.
Real quick, what's scary, you talk about kindergarten, and some of you'd say, oh, they don't have to worry about that, right? They don't have to worry about it. It's getting younger and younger right now. And you may very well, Courtney, in your class have seen stuff. Now, again, it may be something like a little nudie picture or a bad word or this and that. That's what grows into then these
Yes.
sex messages. So what obviously as a teacher, but anyone listening, when you think, well, how young is too young? How old is too old to talk to my kids? You know your child better than anyone is. So you'll know, do they need to be scared with the facts? Do they need to be tiptoed around? You find that common ground. And again, if they're very young, start with the stranger danger, but also talk about how people known to you can make you feel uncomfortable. So if a
Right.
grandfather, a stepfather, uncle, if anyone tries to touch you in that no touch zone, tell a trusted adult. Then as they start to get a little bit more older, you can talk to them about more mature topics. I'll give one more website here, netsmarts.org, and there's a Z at the end. So netsmarts with a Z, netsmarts.org. That's the National Center for Missing Exploited Children. They have amazing videos, Courtney, from ages like 3 years old up through college. So age-appropriate videos that talk about these issues. I absolutely recommend parents and grandparents to go to netsmarts.org, get educated, show your children these videos as a way of helping them once again have their antenna up so that if they see something, they'll know what it is and they'll stay away from it.
And yeah, I'll add for you guys listening, I'll add all of these websites in the description. They'll pop up on the screen. Another thing that I've read over and over again, and it might be a story that somebody made up, but it's so important to teach your children anatomy correct terminology, not cookie or something cutesy like that.
Yep.
There was a
Yep.
post that I read a couple years ago and it was like, oh, this little girl came up to me in my Sunday school class or whatever it was and told me that her uncle touched her cookie, and it ended up being like a molestation story. So don't be afraid to teach your children correct terminology, because if a 3-year-old comes up and says, oh, whoever touched my cookie did whatever, then like you're not gonna think anything of it. But if the 3-year-old comes up and says, oh, so and so touched my vagina or touched my penis, then you're gonna be like, oh, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, and that's what the traffickers want, is to use these little cutesy terms, which helps them. So again, and trust me, parents, grandparents, I've been there. It's a little awkward, but have these talks with your kids. This is going to do more than anything that I've told you so far to protect them. And I know you can, and we can be optimistic about this.
And we have about 20 minutes left. Can we go into anybody that's listening, how they can sign up, what they can do locally, or for those, I'm in 57 countries, for those that are listening overseas right now, how can they get started or set up something to bring awareness or to help stop this happening in their area?
Yeah, so grateful, Courtney, for this platform. OURrescue.org, ourrescue.org, our website, has ways to join the fight. There's even a little drop down, join the fight. It's anything along the spectrum of holding fundraisers, bake sales, color runs, more significant fundraisers, to spreading the word on social media, to becoming an abolitionist for just $5 a month. That's real money. That's where we get a bulk of our donations from great Americans and others around the world who are helping. Then can you make connections? Are you in law enforcement? Are you in the judicial system? Are you in an aftercare? Those of you who work there, let's make connections. Let's collaborate. Or do you know police officers, sheriffs, prosecutors, politicians who would like Operation Underground Railroad to help? We come in humble. We don't tell you what to do. You tell us what to do. So we come in and, you talk about Northern Ohio. Let's say we go to Northern Ohio, Courtney. We talk to Cleveland, Akron, and other law enforcement. We don't tell them what to do. We say, what do you need? What are you seeing? Are you seeing things coming across the Great Lakes? Are you seeing, going to Canada? Is it Mexican cartels? Is it Asian gangs? Whatever it is, we then provide some of this funding, these training tools, technology. But we need to get the word out, and that's what, again, on our website. Anyone who can donate, please, even $5 a month, it all helps. If it's something where you really can't donate, but you can pray, please pray for us. Send up well wishes, good thoughts. Our men and women are in danger almost every single day around the world. We could work in any jurisdiction because trafficking is happening there, because it happens around the world. We can only work where we're invited. So pray that we can go to people in law enforcement units in countries and U.S. states who will do the right thing and fight trafficking. And that's what I talked about earlier, making these connections. That's the only way we're going to fight it, is if every one of us comes together and does what we can in our sphere to help end this problem.
You guys might think like, oh, I can't do anything, I'm just one person. That's not true at all, especially with a topic like this, because everybody needs to look out for these children. Tagline in the movie, God's children are not for sale. You've said it in this interview. Children are so important, and they're so innocent and trusting. And if they don't have an adult that they can trust, then they are so much more likely to be abused in one way or the other. So getting involved locally is so important. Another tagline that you guys are familiar with, local action makes national impact. And that's one of the most important things that everybody needs to drill into your own head. You are one person, but one person can make such a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of things I forgot too is follow us on social media. I love that you're on social media as well. We share videos and updates from our rescues. Sometimes we get prayer requests going. We have a YouTube channel. You'll learn a little bit more about our operations and operators. And again, posting on social media, talking about this issue, going to see Sound of Freedom and some of our other documentaries. This is a way that we can get everyone together. It's kind of like, our heroes in the Civil War time frame, Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass in the Civil Rights era. We look at Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. We see her as one of our heroes because she used entertainment back then, a book, to raise awareness about the Civil War and why we're really fighting. That's why we're doing movies and documentaries. And as you said, Courtney, Sound of Freedom did so much good to bring people together, because they would go see the movie. They'd say, okay, this is an issue. Then they go to their community and say, all right, it doesn't look like in my community like in the movie, but that's okay. Let's figure out how it looks like in my community. Gets to this local community, national change, as you just mentioned.
I love all of that. I love the fact that, there are tools that you guys listening can go see on the website. Again, I will put all of that in the description. You can make a difference. Have a watch party, watch Operation Tucson, watch Sound of Freedom, watch any of the other ones. You can go get materials to hand out. I was looking a couple weeks ago, you can host a booth at a festival in your community, have flyers and little pamphlets, and share how other people can get involved. By you helping other people, you're making a huge difference, because you're extending that information and that knowledge to those who didn't otherwise know.
That is so true. And we always say, you will know more than we will. You will know better than we do what you can do. I invite everyone to ponder, pray, reflect. And this you don't hear this oftentimes in the nonprofit. I'll say, even go support another group. Go support another group fighting human trafficking, child exploitation. We'd love for you to support ours, but anything you do, any group, these are God's precious children. You just heard Courtney say, God's children are not for sale. It's absolutely true. And this is what we've dedicated our lives. A lot of us have given up good government jobs, pensions, government health care, because we knew there was something more important. And it's this. What else could be out there other than, in terms of, where our society is going? They don't value children anymore. You see that every day in your classroom. You're one of the few who value people, right? I know parents, but you look at society, these kids aren't getting the respect that they deserve if they're looking just at social media and at music and Hollywood. That's why we need to really start, I think, and change the course of conversation on this topic in our country.
I absolutely agree. For those listening or just tuning in, Operation Underground Railroad has been around 10, 12 years, a long time. They're making such a huge impact, and they're trying to reach communities all around. You can help them by telling them where they need to come, like Matt just said. If you want to like host an event or whatever it is, just go to the website ourrescue.com, right? .com.
OURrescue.org. Yeah, just think
.org.
ourrescue.org. Thank you.
And put in your information. Matt, what are closing thoughts, things that people need to know, the most important things that people can take away from this interview?
Yeah, basically that this happens, right? You heard Courtney at the outset say this is the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, the second most lucrative illegal business behind the drug trade. Because how many times can you sell a bag of cocaine, as you heard the Jim Caviezel character say in the movie, one time? How many times can you sell a child over and over again? You don't want to overly freak out and think your child's going to get taken necessarily, but it's all about awareness. Again, remember, the eyes don't see what the mind doesn't know. If you think you see something that looks like human trafficking, the National Human Trafficking Hotline, 373, so it's 888-373-7888. If you see something, say something. Law enforcement would rather you see something and say something, and maybe it turns out not to be, than for you just to be like, oh, that looks weird, that's sketchy, I'm not saying anything. Well,
Right.
then you miss a chance potentially to save. Thanks for all who can go to OURrescue.org to learn more about what we do every single day. We're not the heroes. It's the men and women of law enforcement and the judiciary and prosecutors who every day are on the ground fighting this. They're the heroes. And then also the aftercare. Let's all work so that victims who become survivors and then survivors can become thrivers. That's our motto. And that's what we want to do. And then one last thing, and I'll reiterate it. It is precisely things like this, the Patriot Strong podcast, which talks about dark topics like this. Thank you, Courtney, for tackling something that's kind of dark. Thank you to your listeners who've stayed with us this long during the podcast, even when I know some of it was a little icky and scary to think about. We cannot be ostriches and stick our head in the sand. We have to fight against this evil that's going on in the U.S. and around the world, but we can make a difference. We can fight this together. I have so many more reasons for optimism than pessimism. And one of it is because one of those reasons is talking with you today. And I'm so grateful.
Thank you, Matt, so much. You guys listening again, you've seen all the websites and numbers pop up on the screen throughout the interview. I'll put them all in the description of the podcast. Please share. This is one of the most important podcast interviews that you will ever listen to. I don't care who else you're subscribed to. This one is the most important because our children are our future and somebody has to look out for them. And that's just a fact. They don't have a voice. And you need to be their voice by standing up and protecting them. Go to all the websites, set up something locally, volunteer. Can people volunteer? Is that something that you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. In our abolitionist club and on our website, OURrescue.org, join the team. We want to help host events, or if you have an anti-trafficking event, maybe I'll come speak or others will come speak. But yes, we want to get this word out in your communities. Think about your schools, your faith communities, your homeowners associations. Let's get this word out and really ask strong questions of your local officials, your mayor, your chief of police, your sheriff. What are you doing to fight child exploitation and human trafficking? If they ever say that doesn't exist in our community, they're lying, because this happens in every corner of the world, every day of the year. So who are you going to be, law enforcement and politicians? Are you going to be ostriches, or are you going to be lions who fight this? And that's what everyone in our communities, each of us, my community as well, we need to hold our elected officials and law enforcement specialists accountable so to make sure they're doing something.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Matt, for your time. Thank you and all of your team, all of the volunteers, all of the people that are involved in the outreach. And, like you said, you're the judiciaries, the officials, the law enforcement, people that are putting their neck out on the line to do these rescues and these scary things. My husband and I were talking before this interview. He said, if I have to go out, I would rather go out doing something like this than, in my sleep or in a hospital bed. And it's the heart behind the passion that really makes this a successful movement. And I'm so grateful for you guys.
Well, thanks to you. Thanks to the whole Patriot Strong community. And don't ever hesitate to reach out if there's anything we can do to support with Operation Underground Railroad.
Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Rewatch this interview, write down all those numbers, be a voice for your children, talk to them about the scary things. It is important. You're their parent, not only their friend. You know, you have to be a parent to them, watch out for them, let them know that this stuff happens. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. God bless you. God bless this country, and together we're Patriot Strong. Bye, guys. Hi, Patriot community. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. I want to play this music video for you guys. It's called Taken by Tyson James. I hope you enjoy it.
Taken, no one hears the cry, just left in the world alone. Taken, no one's asking why. God, let the truth be known. Let the truth be known.
Oprah gon' get it, the Clintons gon' get it. Epstein, he got it, giving God all the credit. They some sick individuals, trafficking subliminals. They've been doing satanic rituals. This ain't minimal, I'm in the whirlwind. This perverted generation is discouraging. I'm determined with the burner to run up on the person doing the hurt. And I'm learning, I'm firm, and I know God'll open the curtain. Expose Hollywood. If I could light a match and burn it down, I probably would. I can make a difference, and I'm trying, even though I'm just a rapper. But I'ma say that all lives matter. Pray for the kids.
No one hears the cry, just left in the world alone. In the world alone. Taken, no one's asking why. God, let the truth be known. Let the truth be known.
Half of Hollywood, a bunch of pedophiles. They a bunch of dogs, throw 'em a bone and they will sell a child. I don't watch Disney, I can tell it's vile. They're bowing to the beast, they're worshiping the devil. I just wanna save the kids, I know I'll see them in the sky. They will have a day in court and he will make it right. They gon' see their violators taken from the light and given to the fire. We're living, they will die. God's in the midst, I know that he is big and I know that he exists. I know if you step over the line, then you gon' see my fist. 9 milli hollow point if you ever touch my kids.
Taken, no one hears the cry, just left in the world alone. In the world alone. Taken, no one's asking why. God, let the truth be known. Let the truth be known. Be known. Let the truth be known.
Welcome to the next generation of warfare, psychological warfare. In modern conflict, the mind is a potent weapon. Discover General Michael T. Flynn's groundbreaking guide, The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. Unlock tactics, strategies, and the mindset to navigate this cognitive battlefield that we all find ourselves in. Equip yourself against manipulation and emerge unscathed. Unleash your potential. Order now.